Welcome back, folks. It's November the 4th, 2019. I am Myrna Santos, and this is Dighton's Community Corner, offering you a very special program tonight. We are here to honor, remember, and celebrate some of the most special people in the history of the world, American veterans, each and every one of them. Tonight's guests represent America's greatest generation, the heroes and the heroines of World War II. Their message of honor and sacrifice applies to all veterans of all wars who have served or are now serving, giving of themselves for the freedoms we all share. As always, before we begin, and especially on this particular program, which is centered on our heroes, please join with me in pledging allegiance to the greatest nation in the history of the world, the United States of America, with our deepest reverence for the price our veterans have paid for our freedom to make this pledge, and I will excuse the gentlemen from standing if they don't feel they can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You had to know that American veterans would stand to pledge to the flag. Before we start, I want to say that Dighton's Veteran Service Officer was not able to be here tonight because Donald Hershey has Monday evening appointments with the people that he serves, our veterans. So he can't be here in person, but I feel sure that you can meet him probably at the complimentary Veterans Breakfast on Saturday morning, November the 4th. I have 3 quick announcements. On Friday, November the 8th at 6:30 p.m. in the Old Town Hall, there will be a community outreach meeting about the proposed cannabis operation to be housed at 630 Spring Street, North Dighton. Number 2, and very important, there will be a Veterans Day breakfast next Saturday morning, November 9th at 9 a.m. at the West Dighton Christian Church on Horton Street. There's a phone number to call, 508-669-4524, or you can call the Veterans Office in the Town Hall. Veterans may bring a guest, and the complimentary breakfast is, of course, free of charge. Then number 3, and coming very quickly, too quickly really, the annual Lights On celebration at the Town Hall will take place on Saturday, November 30th, starting at 3:30 p.m. It will include the lighting of the Christmas tree, visits with Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus, music, carols, food, and much, much more. A wonderful event to set the tone for the 2019 Christmas season. And this is for all children, young and young at heart. So enjoy. The tramp, tramp, tramp of soldiers' feet on unfamiliar soil. The towering roar of aircraft engines cutting the air. The steady thrum, thrum, thrum of ships on and under the sea. Artillery and bombs, guns, knives, sabers, swords, and hands. Terrible pain, suffering, and anguish. Days that start in sunshine and close forever with dying warriors. Their sunshine gone forever. Another day, another battle. For what? Our nation has bravely fought at home and all over the world and has paid the terrible price. We have sacrificed our priceless treasure, America's sons and daughters, for the goal of freedom. We must never forget our veterans and the debt we owe to them, lest the ultimate battle for freedom be forever lost. And so I dedicate this program to all of our veterans from all of our conflicts. May God be their protector as they have become ours. We have special guests tonight, World War II veterans, members of the greatest generation. Mr. Anton Mendes, who served in the Pacific Theater of World War II as a Seabee, And he's accompanied by his daughter, Mary Lawler, who has a little discussion she's brought to have with him.
Yeah. Do you want me to start?
Yeah, certainly, go right ahead, Mary.
Okay, Dad, why did you enlist in the
Well, we
service?
wanted to sign up, but our folks wouldn't let us, me and my brother,
Why wouldn't they let you?
because they didn't want to see us get hurt. That was
And-
it, huh?
And you wanted to join the Marines like Uncle
Yeah.
Charlie did, but for a reason they wouldn't let the
Well,
siblings.
he asked me why. I says, well, my brother's a Marine.
And then
And they says, well, we don't have any room, so I
Oh.
picked the Navy.
and when did you enlist and how old were you when you enlisted?
What was my last
When
what?
did you enlist? What was the date of your enlistment?
Oh, it's January 14th, 1944,
And how old were you?
18. Well, I was 18 in 43.
Wasn't that awful young? Didn't you
No,
feel
no,
like still a kid
18
going off to war?
was the enlistment age. In other words, it was a war, so they drafted you.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
didn't feel like a kid still at 18. You felt you could take
No, I
on
was
the
glad
world.
to get out of school.
Glad to get out of school.
Yeah,
Oh, my.
What branch of service were you in again?
Navy, Seabees.
Okay, and I know that you were stationed first in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Yeah.
And then from there, you went on to Hawaii on a ship?
Well, I signed up for sea duty, and they shipped me to Hawaii and put me into the Seabees,
Okay.
which was the Navy.
Yeah.
And then we went down to the island of Tinian.
And what was your purpose of going to the island of Tinian?
Well, they wanted to just protect the island,
And the island was for, what did it serve?
what
It
did
was
it?
the Air Force, right? The Air Force
Well,
for,
the island
large-
of Tinian had a large air base, airfield at one end, and we were down at the other.
and you were just guarding, making
Well,
sure.
we were just there, just in case, yeah.
But you talked about seeing the Japanese planes fly over and you could see.
Oh, yeah, they come in low, and the pilot be looking right at me, and I'd be looking at him, but his plan was just to bomb the airfields.
So did they bomb the airfields?
Huh?
Did they bomb the airfields?
Oh, yeah, they tried. I used to sit out and watch the shrapnel.
Wow, you
Yeah.
could see the gunfire come out.
Huh?
You could see the gunfire come
Well,
out.
yeah, I did puffs of smoke, I guess.
Yeah. Now what happened on the island of Tinian? It was something they kept a secret from the actual men.
Oh,
that
yeah,
were
we didn't
serving.
know nothing about the atomic bomb or anything.
So were you still there, present, when the
We were
Enola Gay
there.
took off? Were you there when they took off with the atomic bomb?
No, well, I must have been there, yeah. I was there, but
Yeah.
I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of us knew.
And they, the first bomb was what, called the Little Boy, right?
Yeah, that was what, Nagasaki,
No, Hiroshima,
Hiroshima, yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought it was
yeah.
Hiroshima.
Well,
Nagasaki, yeah, Hiroshima was a little boy on August 6,
Yeah.
1945. Nagasaki was fat boy on August 9th.
Now, he speaks that there was two bombs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the second bomb was the Fat Boy.
Fat Boy.
Nagasaki, which actually ended the war, correct?
Yes.
On August 9th. Now, you told me that after you were on Tinian Island, that you went over to Hiroshima.
Yeah, well,
After
we
the
went,
bomb?
the Japanese gave up, so we went over to occupy Japan.
Oh. And what did you see? And
Well,
what did you witness there?
they wanted to know if anybody volunteered to go through Hiroshima or Hiroshima or whatever. And there was about 5 of us that volunteered,
To go over?
yeah.
And can you talk about what you saw? You saw that
Well, everything was flat except for an angle iron here and there, and the church on the hill was still there.
This church.
The
that
church
he
was
saw.
still standing, and
Yeah.
you know what? I don't know whether, she said just hold it up, and yeah, they can get the,
He actually saw this church when he went over to Hiroshima. And also you mentioned that,
Powdered bodies were
in the street.
powdered. If you seen it, I didn't know it then, but if you seen a powdery dust on the ground, it's usually your body.
just a powdery dust on the
Yeah.
ground.
In other words,
The power of
bodies
the
were
atomic
burned,
bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then his other thing he went into the cave and there was Japanese men that were deceased and their skin was all melted off.
Well, we went to a cave and seen one of them that his mouth was wide open and
Yeah.
his teeth and the bones were in his shoes, no meat.
The horrors of war,
Huh?
the horrors of war. Why we're here tonight, because we don't ever need to see this again.
Yeah, what'd she say?
It needs to end.
The horrors of war.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully we never see it again.
Yeah, no,
Hopefully
it
not.
didn't bother me then, so, I mean,
You were young.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was, what,
We've learned a lot over the years.
20 years old.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that's my experience, you know.
Mr. Mendes, thank you very much. I
Yeah,
appreciate
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I think I'm going to pass it down to my husband for a minute before we talk to Richmond about the ranger. Ed, just tell us a little bit about when you went in and the fact that you first applied for the Navy. Tell them why you went to join the Navy.
Okay. You all heard of the Sullivan brothers, all went down on one ship.
The five of them,
And they
right?
made a movie of it. So there was 3 or 4 of us young guys that went to the
High
movie.
school kids.
Oh.
And the next day we all went to the Paco building to join the Navy. They all passed, but I didn't pass the color blindness test that they gave me, so they turned me down. So 2 weeks later I got drafted. And the Army took me and sent me down to Alabama infantry training. And after I was down there for a while, the war ended. So they didn't know what to do with us. So they all shipped us over to an air base in Kansas. And we were there for a couple of weeks. And they all shipped us, not all of us, but several of us, they shipped us to the Westover Air Base in Chicopee Falls, Massachusetts, the other side of Springfield. And I became a weather observer for the Air Force. Now, I come from a large family, and I had 4 brothers in the service, and one of them was in the 1st Infantry Division. He fought all through Africa, and they conquered that. Then they went to Sicily, and they had a battle in Sicily the Italians control, and they won that battle. They shipped the 1st Infantry Division back to England for training, and he landed on Omaha Beach, and he fought all through Belgium, France, and Germany till they conquered Germany. He never got a scratch.
Thank God.
Yeah.
He was lucky.
Fortunate. And he was in the service for what, 27 years, I believe?
Yeah.
Yeah. He stayed in.
But I had another brother in the 4th Infantry Division, and he fought through Germany, but he didn't get a scratch either. He was in the field artillery unit.
And you had one.
So we were very, very fortunate in our family.
Yeah.
There was 4 of us that was in the service during the Second World War.
Thank you. He told me he wasn't going to say anything. I'm very glad he
That
did.
was great, yeah.
Mr. Tripp, tell us about the Ranger.
About the Ranger?
Tell us of your adventures, yes, please.
Well, the Ranger was the first aircraft carrier built from the keel up, and I went aboard her in August 1942. And we were conducting flight operations off of Quonset, and the rumors were that the Allies were going to invade North Africa because the Nazi Germany was establishing submarine bases there, Northwest Africa, where they could attack shipping. So somewhere around the middle of October, we took aboard 3 squadrons of planes, fighters, dive bombers, and we headed east. And we stopped in Bermuda for a while, and we tied up to the main dock there, and the ship has a evaporation process where you take salt water and make fresh water out of it. And fresh water is so scarce in Bermuda that the ship sent all their fresh water into Bermuda, and the crew had to take salt water showers. And
Oh, lovely. Oh, my goodness.
finally, we were headed east again, and we rendezvoused out in the middle of the Atlantic. There was ships coming out of Boston, out of Norfolk, out of New York. And when we rendezvoused, it covered an area equal to the size of the state of Rhode Island.
Oh, my goodness.
Finally, about the 7th of November, we were off of Casablanca. We were the middle task force. And we had a French-speaking officer aboard, and he would broadcast in French. There were a lot of French fishing boats there. That tomorrow morning something's going to happen, so get out of here. And the 8th of November, 6:30, we launched our first flight of airplanes. They didn't have the order to bomb or anything. They had to wait for the play ball was the password. And they were hoping that the Vichy French would see us and just surrender, but it didn't happen. And of course, Germany was there with submarines. So our planes went in, the infantry went ashore, and about the middle of the morning, I happened to be standing on the side of the flight deck, and all of a sudden the ship started making an emergency turn to the starboard, and we could see these 3 torpedoes coming up out of the water and then back down. They almost hit the cruiser astern of us, but if they had hit us, it would have been in the area where we stored torpedoes, so we would have.
Oh, my goodness.
I wouldn't be boring you tonight.
You're not boring us. You are not boring us.
Eventually, about the 11th of November, the French surrendered. They had a brand new battleship, the Jeanne d'Arc, at Casablanca, and our bombers from the Ranger dropped 2 or 3 500-pounders on her. But the battleship Massachusetts, we were out about 12 miles from the coast. The battleship Massachusetts was even further out, but she started sending 16-inch shells in and you could actually see them going through the
Oh, my.
sky. And they did have a couple of direct hits, so that put them out.
My goodness.
So we lost, unfortunately, 5 men that were shot down, and some planes were damaged, so they had to land, and they were taken prisoners, but after the armistice, they were released.
They all came back alive? Those prisoners, the prisoners all came back alive?
Oh, yes, yeah.
I did find on the internet some pictures of the Ranger, and one of them shows and actually I've given them to the cable people, so they'll be on this broadcast. One of them shows the flight deck with one of the, I think the Wildcat airplanes hanging off the side where it had crashed and was falling into the sea, and it showed the crew of the Ranger rushing toward the plane. Scary, scary stuff. None of us can comprehend unless we've been there. There's no one here in this room who can comprehend what you men have seen. No one. No one. How long did you stay in the Navy? How long did you stay in the Navy, Mr. Tripp?
I was discharged October 4th, 1945.
So at the end of the war, yeah.
I was on the Mission Bay at the time, and that was an escort carrier, and we were trying to find some German submarines. We managed to sink 2, and the Mission Bay was the only escort carrier that fought right up until the day before the armistice.
Oh, my.
We were chasing a sub that day, but
That one got away.
yeah.
Well, does anybody have anything they want to add? There are so many questions, I don't even know what to ask.
What was your duty, your job on the ship? Did you, were you a pilot at all, or did you?
No, I couldn't become a pilot because of my eyes, but I started off as what they call a plane captain. You take a plane and make sure it's fueled up, and when the aviator, they don't call the guys that fly planes pilots, because pilots is what brings a boat into the harbor. These are naval aviators. And when they come, you help them to get in, and when they come back, they tell you what they need.
Okay.
And after that, I became a aviation machinist mate. We worked on engines. And on the Mission Bay, I was a Caterpillar operator. And the rating of that is an aviation bosun mate.
You had an interesting career
Yeah.
Yes.
in those years. My goodness, you did. And we have a look at the Atlantic, and we have a look at the Pacific. And when you realize the scope of that war and how many Americans we sacrificed for the freedoms we have, it's pretty humbling. It really, really is. It's something this nation stands alone in. And after the war, we picked up the freight for many other countries who had to completely rebuild. There was nothing left of many of the big cities and so forth in Europe and in Africa. And it was this nation, fronted by our heroes, who put this world back together. Unfortunately, we've lost sight of that fact. And that is why we are doing this program tonight, because I want everyone who watches Community Corner to realize that we would not be sitting here talking like this if it hadn't been for the folks like you who were out there on the front line. And I have a personal interest. I've had many members of the military in my family. And my grandfather, my father, who was on Guadalcanal, my brother, 3 brothers-in-law, my uncle, my aunt, who was a WASP, Women's Army Service Pilot, of which there were only 1,000. So it's something dear to my heart, and it should be dear to everyone's heart. We owe our freedom to the people who put their lives on the line for us. And we are fortunate to be sitting here tonight. And I know, while I'm talking about veterans, I have to mention David Marvel. I know Dave Marvel was a veteran. I don't know which war he was. Was he in Vietnam? Do you know? I don't know. I have a note here to ask him, but he's not here. So, and the reason I mentioned Dave Marvel is because he is the longstanding member of the Cable Committee who finally helped me to get this program back together after 4 years off the air. So he needs to be mentioned here tonight. And we're talking about World War II because time is flying by. It really, really is. And so many of the World War II veterans have left us or will be leaving us. And so World War I is way behind us. There was a lot of information, but we have voices here we can listen to.
And it's nice for people like me who were not even born when that war was taking place to learn these stories. We learned it in school, but we didn't learn it firsthand from people that experienced it. So it's nice of you to share that with us.
I was born, but that was about it. I wasn't very big. And Pearl Harbor happened in December 7th of 1941. And in January of 1942, I kissed my father goodnight one night, and I said, "I will see you tomorrow, Daddy." And I did not see him again until 1945. And I remember that very clearly. It's etched in my memory. And I'm sure there are others who have the goodbye stories. My good fortune was that my dad came home.
Yeah.
Many of them did not. And when I see something like the news program that I saw this week, where they had recovered the body of a World War II hero and returned it home to be buried here in Massachusetts, I thought, what a wonderful gesture for that family. You'll have to forgive the tear. This is very, very emotional for me. It really, really is. And I cannot thank you, gentlemen, enough for being here. I had some other notes here. They don't even count. They amount to nothing. I don't know how we are for time.
Can I say something else to you?
Beg pardon?
Can I say something else to
You certainly can.
My first marriage, my wife had a couple of children, and one was a boy. And I brought him up to the time he was this big. And I don't know whether he got drafted or he joined the service during the Vietnam War.
Yeah, he joined.
Vietnam.
And he was in the Air Force, and he was a cargo master. He wrote me a letter from Vietnam. It brought tears to my eyes, thanking me for bringing him up like I brought him up. I got the letter in a frame at my house.
You prepared him for what he was to see in Vietnam.
Yeah.
He too was an American hero, absolutely. The Vietnamese War was a totally different type of a war. We didn't belong there, and very sadly, those veterans received very little of the recognition and appreciation that they deserved for having fought the way they did. Many of them were drafted. We paid a horrible price in human life over there, and human treasure. And when they came home, they were vilified. They were turned away. They were not recognized. They were not appreciated. The treatment of our Vietnam veterans was disgraceful, really and truly, by and large, disgraceful. But I have to bounce back to Ed's son, Ricky, and add the fact that he was not only a Vietnam veteran, he came home with a distinguished flying cross. So there are heroes all around us. Talk to the families that you think you know, and find out who among them served this nation, because these are the folks that gave us what we have. And believe me, this to me, this program tonight to me, is the most important thing that I have done for the town of Dighton in many, many years, because everybody needs to know what we've contributed. I could go back and I could name the people who died in World War I. I could name casualties from the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. We've had 2 VFW posts here in Dighton over the years. Many, many heroes, recent heroes. Mr. Van Geisen and Korea hero, Mr. Dutra. And I didn't want to get back into all of that. I just wanted to bring it to now, to the folks who are still with us, who've been on the front line, who've carried our freedom in their hearts and kept it for us. I can't say thank you enough. Does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question for each one of them. We always hear about the mail, how it was so important to the men in battle. Is there any one letter or one person that you always waited for the letter for? Something from each one of them? Like a letter they remember really well?
He's asking if there was a particular letter that you used to wait for.
A letter?
Yeah, whose letter? Which one?
Strange, when I came home on leave from boot camp, I met a girl at Lincoln Park. And we wrote letters back and forth, and it was always her letter. Like if we might have been, when we went to India, we were at sea for 3 months. When I got back, I had 20 letters waiting for me. So,
Another story I've repeated 100 times before, during the Second World War. I was born and brought up in Dighton, and there was a lot of farmers in Dighton. My family was a farmer, you know. And there was a family from Dighton. The oldest son was in the service. I don't know whether he got drafted or he joined us. I think he got drafted. But he was stationed in an army base down in Pennsylvania. And all during the war, the beginning of the war, he stayed there. It was rumored, the rumors in Dighton was the father must be paying somebody off to keep his son out. Well, the casualty rate started going up, so they brought him from Pennsylvania and they shipped him to Germany or France or whatever. He wasn't over there 2 weeks and he got killed.
What was his name?
No, after the show.
Yeah.
After the show.
And Dad, was there anybody you remember a letter from, or anybody you used to wait for? Dad?
What?
Was there anyone you would look forward to a letter from, like you and Charlie, or when you got the mail, was there someone special that you were waiting to hear from?
I still don't know what you said. Was there
Did you
anyone?
ever wait upon a letter coming to you when you were in the service from a certain special someone?
No.
No.
Who? Who would
Easy
I?
answer.
Who would I? Someone.
Did your mother write you
Oh,
perhaps?
yeah, they wrote to me, but.
Yeah. So I bet you probably look forward to that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you always, yeah. Well, I had my mother and my sisters, and
Oh, Gabriel.
yeah, I was a very shy person. So I didn't have really. I had a girl that kept writing me, but
Mr.
Well,
Tripp,
that was important, just to say,
Mr. Tripp, when you got back, did you date the girl that you were seeing, that you had the letters from?
did you get together with the girl you got the letters from after the war?
Did I get together with her?
That was, did you continue your relationship?
We were married before I got out of the Navy.
Oh, wow.
We lived together for 68 years. Unfortunately, she passed away. But speaking of letters, we saved every letter, and I'm reading them today.
Nice.
I start and read, and it just brings
That's
me
so
closer
cool.
to it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Letters are precious, and letters are very valuable. Letters have so much, because there was not the communication. You did not know from day to day to week to month whether or not your loved one was even alive or where they were. There was no way, and everything was censored. And after my grandparents died, I had the difficult job of cleaning out the farmhouse where I grew up. And my uncle was in the Navy. He was in the Pacific. He was in some kind of really heavy action, but I don't know the story. And so I don't want to relate it, or try to relate it. But in cleaning out the attic, I worked with the antique people who cleaned out the house. And in cleaning out the attic, I came across a cardboard box, well, about this big and about that high, and it was broken. And there were papers lying around it, and I looked at it, and it was letters. And I said to the people who were cleaning out, I said, what are you going to do with the box of letters? Because I think these might be World War II letters. And they said, we don't want them. You can have them if you want to, otherwise we're going to toss them in the dumpster. I said, oh, no, you're not. So I got a better box, and I gathered them all up, dusty and dirty and so forth and so on. And when I got a chance to sit down and go through them, they were all of the letters that my uncle had written to my aunt from his time at sea. I have no idea where. And there were some others in there. 2 from my father when he was on Guadalcanal, and my father was an artist, so they were illustrated. And a couple from my grandfather, and I thought, my goodness, they nearly got thrown away. How precious. And I believe there's actually a website, letters from servicemen. I don't know the name of it, but I believe there is something. And I know there have been books written based on the letters. I just wish that I had the back and forth. We have half the story. We have Kip's part of the story. We don't have my aunt's part. And my mother, who had my father's letters, burned them. She said, those are my memories, and she didn't share them. But my father wrote to me 3 times while he was overseas. I couldn't read them then, but I have them now, and every once in a while I take them out and look at them just to see the handwriting.
I was going to say, my brother was in the Marines. He was on Guadalcanal.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a
Yeah,
bad
he was
place.
in a few invasions.
That was a bad place.
Yeah.
But they were all bad places. No matter where you were. If there were any kind of military engagement at all, they were all bad places. I'm so glad the 3 of you were all here. That's the most important part. And we could talk all night, but it's getting to 7 o'clock.
Could I just say one thing?
Please do.
The letters we wrote aboard ship had to be censored.
Yes, yeah.
We couldn't tell where we were or what was going on. And one letter my wife received, it said, Dear Caroline, love.
Oh.
They just about took everything out.
Everything out of the letter. Yeah. I didn't read them all, so I don't know what the censorship was on Kip's, because I really tried to give them to my cousins, but so far, and that was 15, 20 years ago, I haven't gotten any interest from my 3 cousins, and he's their dad. So they're still in my basement, and one of these days I'll try again, but they didn't want them, so anyway. So are we all set? Because I'm going to wind this down so we can thank you once again,
Okay,
from the
well,
bottom of
see
my
you at our
heart. Thank you,
funeral.
thank you. On behalf of everybody sharing our freedom to watch this program, and before we close tonight, I offer our guests, Anton Mendes and your daughter Mary and your wonderful family, and Lorraine, thank you for coming, Lorraine, and my husband Edward Santos, and Mr. Richmond Tripp, my dear friend, my humble and sincere thanks to all of you for your service to our nation and for coming out in the chill of a New England fall evening to share this tribute program with me. Our thanks go out as well to all of the heroes, and especially those from the little town of Dighton, Massachusetts, who have served in all of the wars that from the creation of this nation have kept this republic safe from our enemies and allow us to this day to live in freedom in a dangerous and tumultuous world. My prayer is that all wars might end, and most certainly I pray that we will never again know another world war. The price of war is beyond measure, and I am proud to say that I have a deep and heartfelt respect for America's veterans, each and every one. Our veterans have given us the right to freely smile, so remember, keep smiling. Share those smiles of freedom. Thank you all. God bless America. Good night.